In Memphis, nothing comes easy, and that's exactly how we like it. This is a city built on hustle, on heart, on grit. And at Carway, our rides are built the same way. Tough, reliable, ready for the grind. No games, no gimmicks, just Memphis-style service. Real, honest, and built on trust. Where grit meets grind, you meet your next ride. Carway, grit, grind, and Pink Beetles. In Memphis, we know a thing or two about resilience. From the grindhouse to the Delta, we protect what's ours. But when pests invade your home, it's time to fight back. Grade A Pest knows how to handle what crawls, flies, and bites. With local experience and guaranteed results.
I'm Reggie with Grade A Pest Control. We service the Memphis metro area. That also includes DeSoto and Fayette County as well.
Grade A Pest has the entire Mid-South covered. So if bugs and pests put you to the test, let Grade A solve your problem. From the heart of Tiger Nation, this is where the insiders talk. Real stories, real access, and the pulse of Memphis athletics. You're tuned on beat with BCM. Now, let's get to the show.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another summer edition of On Beat with BCM here on the Bluff City Media Network. I am Memphis Tigers men's basketball beat reporter for Bluff City Media, Roman Cleary, and I'm joined as always by our esteemed owner, director of creative content, Kenny Stubblefield, for I believe this is the third consecutive week now. We're rolling here throughout July, the dead period of Tiger athletics, but we're still here to talk Tiger athletics nonetheless, or at least what we can of it at this point. Kenny, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm wonderful, man. Are you ready for the rain to stop? Like, are you ready for it to not rain? It has been the wettest summer in Memphis
Ever,
right? Like I don't know
it's certainly the rainiest that I can remember, at least in a long time.
I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be like, well, actually, in the year 1948, there was a year. I wasn't around then, and clearly Roman was not either. Roman's 16 years old, so. But no, it's been crazy. It's been super wet. My grass is loving it, but I have to cut it literally every 5 days for it to stay where I want it to stay. So it's been wild.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like a challenge that is of the results of these flash floods that have been everywhere. I mean, I detailed a little bit my troubles with the flash floods on the way to the stadium tour last week, and ran into there were some more thunderstorms today. My internet got cut out last night, even though my power didn't, and that's just annoying. More than anything, like you lose your internet, but your
power's not out, but your internet's out. It's like, what do I do here?
Exactly. At least when your power goes out, there's like just a form of acceptance.
Yes,
that comes with it, and you're just like, you know what, it's all out. I can make the best of this situation. But when it's just your internet that's out and everything else is working, there's just something that's more demoralizing about that for whatever reason.
Roman, I remember back in my early high school days when we didn't have the internet in our house. We didn't have so like that would have taken me back to like 1996, 1995, when we didn't have the internet readily available to be able to access and watch and do everything right and look at Twitter and all that kind of stuff. None of that was existent. It is crazy. I'll talk to my daughter every once in a while about like what life was like when I was her age. And she's just like, oh my gosh, the Stone Ages. Like I couldn't imagine going back to that time period. Yeah, you got a taste of what it was like when Kenny Stubblefield was 14 years old, 15 years old.
Yeah. I mean, there's still cell service, but in my area, the
Fair.
cell service is not incredible.
Yeah.
Because we're right next to an elementary school,
Yeah.
and the elementary school that we're next to has this almost basically uninfiltratable like cell block tower that you cannot bypass that thing. It is it is the strongest cellular block tower I've ever encountered. So I'm sure that interferes with it. Plus, we're on lower ground in the suburbs, so there are just issues that come along with that. So yeah, no, it wasn't great, and no, I couldn't go back to that time. But I don't really think people from your age at this point could either.
No, we could not
at this rate. I mean, you saw the evolution, but I'd say at this point we're all pretty much in the same boat as far as the screen addiction goes.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Maybe I think my generation might be a little bit worse than yours because this thing stays attached to me at all times. It is in my hands. I always got it. But hey, TJ, I was actually on the phone with TJ Willis from Tigers Untapped when the stadium tour was happening last week, and he was calling me to be like, all right, I'm going to get video. I've got my camera ready. But I don't know if it's going to happen or not because it's raining. And he gets into the parking lot and he's like, yeah, I'm here. And Terrence called me and said we might not be doing it. I'm going to hang out here for just a few minutes. And then he goes, and then I hear him stop and he goes, I think Roman just pulled up next to me. And he goes, Roman's getting out of the car. It's raining like crazy. Roman's running into the stadium. I think we're going. So there's a lot. I got a live play-by-play of your struggles with the rain heading into the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. It was quite hilarious, by the way.
Well, I didn't just pull up next to him and just walk out immediately. I sat in the car for a solid 10 to 15 minutes waiting for updates from parents as to whether this was happening or not, because I pulled in after struggling through the monsoon. First thing I did was obviously check the weather app. First thing I saw, forecasted thunderstorms continuing for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
So my assumption at that point, okay, this thing is getting shut down and I'm stuck in this parking lot for 2 hours because there's no chance I'm getting back on the interstate right now. There's just no chance. But it cleared up well enough for Terrence to say, let's give it a shot. So
yeah,
I seized my opportunity when it stopped. It stopped pouring momentarily, and I got in relatively unfazed.
Well, good. Everybody go check out Roman's Substack. He's got a nice write-up about the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium tour, and that's where you can find all of his stuff throughout the year. He tackles pretty much anything that he can get his hands on when it comes to Memphis Tiger sports. So y'all follow him. He's a great follow. What's on deck for tonight, man? What do we want to talk about? It's July 15th. We're in the dead of summer. We don't have a ton to talk about, but what do you want to get into today?
Yeah, no, certainly not. We were speaking on screen addiction earlier, and if it weren't for screen addiction, we would not have 41 people in a Memphis Tiger podcast in July, but it exists, and we appreciate all you for being here. Like Kenny alluded to, not really anything that's like groundbreaking or super headline drawing, but we do have Memphis Football Media Days coming up in St. Pete next week. So that'll be 5 weeks out from the season opener. It's 6 weeks out today, and we'll hear some updates from Charles Huff. I'm sure that will be at least somewhat significant ahead of the 2026 Memphis Tiger football season. But I think my big takeaway from at least this early on is that I believe it was Monday or Tuesday when they announced who's actually going to be representing the Tigers at American Football Media Day this year. It's going to be obviously Charles Huff. He'll be leading the charge there. But besides him, it will be the Southern Miss linebacker transfer Mike Montgomery and the Old Dominion offensive line transfer Martin Woodsma. So those are the only two players that are representing Memphis at Football Media Day this year. And I think the most notable thing that I'm certainly getting from this, and I think everyone else is so far that has at least seen this, is no Marcus Stokes and no Air Noland. Memphis is not going to be playing the same card it did with Ryan Silverfield last year when there was apparently supposed to be a quarterback battle. But then before they actually announced the starter, Brendan Lewis was at media day.
Right.
And it was pretty apparent, okay, that's the direction they're going. And yet we still had another few weeks of them acting like it was a competition. And it's like, guys, you had Brendan Lewis at media day. We know he's the starter. Why are you still acting like it's an open competition? But Charles Huff is not repeating that this year. Marcus Stokes and Air Noland, both of them will not be at media day. So this means either one of two things. Either this quarterback competition that we've been talking about, at least at times since January when both these guys committed to the program, it's either still ongoing or Memphis is simply not ready to reveal its starter yet. And that's what it would essentially be doing if one of these quarterbacks were to obviously appear at media day. So it appears, at least for the moment, that this quarterback battle that I think we're all pretty much awaiting an answer to between Marcus Stokes and Air Noland is still remains to be answered at this rate.
Yeah, and it's got people in our comment section saying, guys, who's our quarterback? We need to know. I'll say this, man. Charles Huff is a strategic dude in what he does, in everything that he does. There is nothing that there's no information. There is no commentary from the Memphis football, from the Billy J. Murphy complex that comes out that's not strategically motivated. And I think that even while I think Mike Montgomery is a fantastic linebacker, I think he is going to be, if you go back and watch last night's episode of On the Bluff, Gabe Kuhn, one of the co-hosts of the On the Bluff podcast and host of the Gabe Kuhn Show on 92.9 ESPN every day, says that he thinks that this is going to be the first time in many years that the Tigers have had at least three guys that will probably be NFL draft picks next year on the defensive end of the defensive side of the field. He said Ian Foster will be one, Jamon Tapp will be one, and Mike Montgomery will more than likely be one. And he said this defense, and if you listen to any of the national guys that are talking about Memphis football, they'll tell you Memphis's defense is going to be probably more than likely the best defense in the American Conference this year. They are really, really, really talented. Jamon Tapp has garnered a lot of offseason hype about his skill set and what he can do. And so Mike Montgomery going, if you've listened to anything that he said, interviews with him, he's a great communicator, and has touted the Memphis football program since he's been on campus. So it doesn't surprise me that Mike Montgomery is going to be there, because Mike Montgomery is probably a guy that will represent the University of Memphis in the NFL starting next year, after this season. The Woodsma kid, don't know a lot about him outside of the fact that he does come highly credentialed from Old Dominion. He's a fantastic golfer over there. 4-year starter, really good player. But I think not having a skilled player on the offensive side of the field it's not on accident. Charles Huff doesn't want a lot of information about his offense out there. I don't think he wants to reveal his hand on things. I don't think he wants other teams to know what the offense is going to look like, because I think that's the biggest question mark. If you go back and you look at even Phil Still, who does basically the Bible for college football in the offseason, he breaks down. He's like, I don't really know what to make of this Memphis Tiger offense. And I think that's not on accident, because I don't think Charles Huff has really allowed a lot out. And you would think that this would be the perfect time to, allow to take a Marcus Stokes or take a Air Noland or even take a Dallin Hayden, a former P4 running back from Ohio State and Colorado, Memphis native, you'd think you would take him, but Charles Huff is not. And I love it. I love the strategy behind it. I love that there's a level of, we're going to allow y'all to keep doubting us. We're going to allow you to not know the answers. Like, we're going to wait till you see us on the field. Like that seems to be the mentality that Charles Huff is taking, and I don't mind it at all. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not looking at anything from a doubtful perspective right now. I don't think it'd be exactly fair to do that because this is basically a completely new team. So it's hard to have any sort of real anticipation of what to expect, especially from guys that may not have played a lot at their previous spots that are stepping into more prominent roles. But with that said, there does appear, to your point, to be a lot more high-end talent on the defensive end. They loaded up in the secondary in the portal. They got Jamon Tapp, who is easily going to be their best edge rusher in years. I can tell you that right now, like before the season even starts off, like out of the gate. He is easily the most talented pass rusher that program has had probably since Bryce Huff, if we're being truly honest.
Right.
And they made other additions along the defensive line as well. They'll have Mike Montgomery handling the middle of the field in the linebacking room. There's a much clearer picture for how that side of the ball is going to play out. Offensively, there are undoubtedly a lot more questions, even beyond the quarterback stuff. Because, like, regardless of who ends up winning the job between Stokes and Noland, I think fans are going to be excited about that regardless, because they're both prominent names who have, different credentials for sure and different accolades to tout, but both are very exciting profiles to get behind. But outside of the quarterback situation, I mean, you have a wide receiver room that really has no clear standout at the moment. I mean, I'd say that Tyshawn Chapman and Terrell Timmons are probably the two biggest transfers they landed in the offseason, but neither of those guys are what you would consider to be a bona fide prototypical wide receiver one like Cortez Braham was last year. And of course, you have Brady Cluse returning from last year's team. And there's a lot to like about Brady Cluse for sure.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of his game. He's a big body, big bodied receiver who has really, really good body control, good hands, good, spatial awareness where he is on the field, as evidenced by that insane catch that he made in the second game of the year last year. Not the most profound route runner, but he's a very adequate athlete who's able to beat defenders at the catch point. Just a really, really solid player, but I don't know if he profiles as what you would call a wide receiver one. So either one of those three guys or someone we haven't named is going to have to likely emerge to be at least competent in that role. And as for offensive line, they made a lot of additions there, including Martin Woodsma, but regardless of how talented or how pedigreed these offensive linemen are, offensive line, when it's new like this, is always going to be a question, because good offensive line play, it requires chemistry. It requires synergy between, the guards and the centers, and the guards and the tackles respectively. Like there has to be a chemistry developed there. Like where is this guy going to step? What gap does this guy like to attack? Things like that. And those things can only really be built, through time playing together. And that's just not a luxury this team is going to have along the trenches. So there's certainly more questions to be answered offensively. But we also know heading into Charles Huff has more of an offensive profile than a defensive profile as a coach. His expertise is more on the offensive side. So it's something of a reasonable expectation, I think, for, Memphis to be able to trust, its high-end talent on the defensive side to be able to live up to those expectations. Whereas, offensively, Charles Huff can maybe, and Kevin Decker as well, those two can help the offense, come along maybe a bit slowly at first, but be able to find a good steadying point at some point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Kevin Decker's offense at Old Dominion last year, it was dynamic, right? And a lot of it was based out of establishing a run using obviously your running backs and your quarterbacks, and kind of opening up the field for your wide receivers to take shots down the field. I've heard guys that know football a lot better than I do describe it as like a Josh Heupel style offense, where you are maximizing the passing game by establishing a run game. And Kevin Decker was extremely successful with that at Old Dominion last year. Every year that he was at Old Dominion, their offense took major leaps. It was top 20 in the country last year in total yards. It was top 10 in the country in total touchdowns. I mean, a lot of points, a lot of yards, a lot of rushing. The rushing offense was incredible last year for Old Dominion. And so I would suspect that you're right in terms of Charles Huff's his style, offensive style, plus you add a Kevin Decker Old Dominion style offense to the Memphis Tigers. I would suspect that their offense will be. I
mean, I imagine it's going to be Kevin Decker's. It's going to be Kevin Decker's
yes.
offense for the most part, and I think that Charles Huff will take more of a CEO type role as a head coach. I don't think he's going to be assuming play calling duties or anything like that. I think that's going to go to Kevin Decker. But Charles Huff is more of an offensive background, so I'm guessing he will be probably a bit more involved on that end, and just let the defensive coaches do what they do over there. I mean, he'll oversee everything, obviously. But I was insinuating that he's probably going to be slightly more involved on the offense, even though this is still going to be mainly Kevin Decker's unit.
Yeah, it was so funny. I remember during spring camp, he had a ton of media availabilities, and there was one media availability where Charles Huff said, "Man, our defense is so good. Our offense, we have to bring in our fourth string defense so that our first team offense can even move the ball past the line of scrimmage." And then he comes out a couple of days later and says, "Yeah, our first team offense had 600 yards in a scrimmage today." And so it's like, you just don't know. Like, I love this. I love the way that Charles Huff talks about his team. He gives like some little bites for us as media to like go, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" And then he pulls it back and gives us a little more on the other side of it. It's great. And I'm really excited to tune in to hear what he has to say at the media days. I'm excited to hear what Mike Montgomery has to say. And I think it's going to make for another 4 to 5 weeks of just kind of waiting until the final, probably the last moment, until we figure out, like, okay, what's this quarterback room looking like? What's this running back room? What's the wide receiver room looking like? Because you mentioned, Tyshawn Chapman, you mentioned Brady Cluse. We also, let's not forget, they have Stonka Burnside in the wide receiver room, who is a former Power 4 SEC level receiver who now is transferred down to Memphis. So I would expect that there's probably some. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised by the offense, and I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised, and I hope patient with when that information starts to kind of come out of like who's going to be the main guys, who's going to be the main skill guys on the offensive side of the field. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get at least some of that information when we get to media days next week. A lot of excitement from the Memphis football community heading into this week 0 opener at UNLV. I mean, I saw earlier today we're going to have some BCM fam in the house at Allegiant Stadium over there.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be excited.
I have a question for you, Roman.
Trey's going to have a great time down there. What's up?
I have a question for you, though. It seems like there's been – so, like, FanDuel numbers have come out. People have taken the ESPN FPI and kind of walked through what the ESPN FPI is saying about what Memphis' schedule is going to look like. They got Memphis – ESPN FPI has Memphis 5th in the conference. FanDuel has Memphis 4th or 3rd now. It was 4th last week, 3rd now. FPI has Tulane, number 1 in the conference. They have them. FanDuel has Tulane way down in the conference. They have UTSA top, the best team with Navy, and Memphis right behind them. There seems to be nobody's coming out and saying Memphis will be the best team in the conference this year. They are the prohibitive favorites to win. What are your thoughts on the expectations Tigers fans should be walking into? Should they be? Do you think would you be disappointed if Memphis finished third or fifth or wherever they're being slated to right now?
I would personally expect Memphis, based off of its talent, to finish anywhere in the top 4 in the American. I think it's a reasonable expectation at this point, given the personnel they have available and the schedule that's ahead of them, which is undoubtedly going to be difficult.
It's tough.
Like there's just no two ways around that. You got a first-year head coach that, is bringing in a lot of excitement, but we also have to temper expectations. We can't hold them up to the undefeated season college football playoff appearance on day one. That just cannot be the case at this point, especially when you're still working with a $7 million budget that won't go up to 10 until next year, right? But yeah, I mean, the non-con is tough. I mean, you could see this team both thrive or struggle in it. I could really see it going both ways there. I mean, UNLV on the road is tough. At Boise State is tough. All of their difficult games, at least most of them in the American, they're going to be on the road. They're going to be at South Florida. They're going to be at Navy. They're going to be at Tulane. Like, none of this is going to be easy. I mean, they have Army at home, but that's pretty much the only marquee game they're going to be able to play inside of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium this year, as far as the conference play goes. So given those factors, I think it's a possibility they finish anywhere in the top 4. Now, that could obviously be the top 2 and they make an appearance in the conference championship game. That wouldn't surprise anybody. But if they also end up slipping to 3rd or 4th, which is around where they've been in recent years, I understand. But I imagine the 3rd or 4th that they would finish this year would look a lot different and a lot more inspiring than what the Ryan Silverfield teams have brought to the plate lately.
I would agree. I think the excitement will still be there. Do you think if they do finish 4th or 5th or wherever, do you think Tiger fans will be frustrated by that or upset about that? What do you think? How do you think the reaction would be, or should it be that way?
I think it would likely depend on how things play out throughout the year. Like are there going to be instances where they could have won a pivotal game, but they made mental mistakes in the end and they blew it? Or is it a more honorable 3rd or 4th place finish where they fought to the end, but they just got, outmatched or whatever? That would largely depend, I think, on how it looks on the field.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I mean, like you said, you did say, I mean, their hardest games in conference outside of an East Carolina game in Memphis, or they're all on the road, which is crazy, like how the American Conference continues to do this. They do this every single year to Memphis, where it's either all their best games are at home or all their best games are on the road. It just seems it seems weird. Like, I'm not a big fan of the way the American Conference schedules Memphis. I think that they schedule Memphis in a way that is maybe not as equitable as they do like an Army and a Navy. I think Army and Navy get treated with kid gloves by the American Conference in terms of their scheduling. I mean,
especially Army.
Yeah, case in point, the Army and Navy game.
I think Navy gets a pretty hard schedule every year, but Army has been getting the cupcake schedule for the first 2 years they've been in the league.
Yes,
like easy. Like the fact that Army didn't have to play Memphis at any point in the past 2 seasons,
it's wild, right?
It's wild. Like you're, especially when that's a game that wouldn't that be one of your highest rated games on TV, hypothetically?
You would suspect that it would be. Yeah,
Memphis Army, like you're not going to schedule that for 2 years straight. Like, I'm sure there's some sort of system that they're following that I'm not fully cognizant of, that I'd have to look into a bit more, but on a surface level, that does seem weird for sure.
Well, we got an Army-Memphis matchup this year, October 31st in Memphis. That'll be a fun game. I think that's going to be a good one. Memphis is playing East Carolina the week before that in Memphis. That'll be fun. Tulane on the road the week before that. I just don't think Tulane's going to be that good, to be honest with you. Like, I just don't. I think they're losing too much, and I think Will Hall is not a good coach. And so it'll be interesting.
I mean, Tulane certainly looks to be in a less inspiring position than they normally are, but Tulane is still one of the best funded teams in the league, and they've been at the top of the American, no matter who the coach has been for the past 5 to 6 years at this rate. So I don't know if it's fair to count them out just yet, but they certainly do not look to be a prominent contender for this year. We'll see with Memphis. It looks like they could, but it also looks like they could not. It really depends on how a lot of this turnover translates and how it plays out and how fast they can get rolling. If they can show some stuff and perform in an impressive fashion against UNLV and Boise, you're heading into the conference schedule at that point. Like, okay, there clearly needs to be a raising of expectations here. Yes. And what would be like a 3rd to 4th place disappointment is if they go out in this non-conference and they beat UNLV, they beat Boise State, they run through Arkansas State and Middle Tennessee, they run through the whole non-conference and they look dominant, and then they go 4-4 in the American, like a Ryan Silverfield team did, for example. If they do that, then I think fans would be disappointed. I think they would be frustrated. I think they'd be saying, like, is this just the same thing all over again with a new coach? But if things go a bit more honorably than that, then that would get a different reaction for sure. Like we've been kind of, I guess, summarizing throughout this whole thing, there's still a lot we do not know about this Memphis football team, and we're only 6 weeks away from the opener. So we'll see how that goes. Media days next week. I'm sure we'll learn more, and we'll get the depth chart, I'm sure, a little bit shortly after that, and we'll get a better idea of who the quarterback's going to be and that fun stuff. We do have some basketball stuff to get into after the break. That's not overly eventful, but it's still worth noting. We'll get into all that and more when we return here on Beat with BCM.
Tired of the same old fast food? The soggy fries, the frozen flavors, the meals that never quite hit right. Head over to Waldo's Chicken and Beer, where everything starts fresh and flavor comes first. Our chicken is fried in rich beef tallow for that bold, old-school crunch you can actually taste. And don't skip the premium homemade southern sides, fresh greens, hearty white beans, and creamy mac and cheese made to complete the meal. Bring your whole family. There's plenty of space to relax, plus a game room the kids will love. Catch the game on big screens, grab a drink at the full bar, and enjoy happy hour specials every day from 3 to 6, all day on Tuesday and Sunday. Waldo's Chicken and Beer. Real food, real flavor, made from scratch.
In Memphis, we don't just make memories. We make moments. A Memphis-owned brewery where great beer meets great times. Crafted right here for the city we love. Live music, game days, and events all year long. There's always something happening at Grind City Brewing. Bring your crew, bring your energy, and make every night feel like a celebration. Real beer, real Memphis.
If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you think that growing older means slowing down, sleeping poorly, and lacking the motivation to do the things you want to do, then I've got just the spot for you right here in Memphis. At Game Day Men's Health, you're more than just a number. You're a partner in your health journey. From the free hour-long initial consult to comprehensive check-ins along the way, you're in complete control of your health. Offering TRT, weight loss protocols, performance enhancement, and shockwave therapy for musculoskeletal injuries, you can get back to feeling like the younger version of yourself.
At your initial visit, you'll have your blood pressure, PSA, testosterone, hemoglobin, hematocrit, all tested with your results before you leave the clinic. Plus, you have a real conversation with your provider and not just an in and out visit. Game day can help with muscle pain, joint pain, hair loss, ED, peptides, and more. With 2 convenient locations in the Memphis area, your path to a better life is just minutes away. Call today to schedule your free 101 consultation.
Some dreams don't just come true, they come with 4 paws. At Puppy Dreams, we match loving families with happy, healthy puppies. From playful companions to lifelong best friends, your perfect match is waiting. And with our professional grooming spa, your pup will look as amazing as they feel. Visit Puppy Dreams today and meet the one who's been waiting just for you.
We are back on Beat with BCM. Roman Cleary, Kenny Stubblefield hosting the program this week. Thank you all for tuning into the show as always. We do have some hoops related headlines to get to before we get out of here for this week. I think the biggest one overall is some minor visit news that we got last night is that class of 2027 Bartlett wing Dylan Jones is going to be visiting the Tigers in September, September 5th to be precise. He's also visiting Ole Miss, Providence, and another school that I'm forgetting at the moment. I'll get to it in a second. But what's interesting about this to me, Kenny, is we obviously have Memphis bringing in 3 local guys from the high school ranks this year with Fred Smith, Cello Jackson, and Parker Pounds after years of basically no prominent Memphians from the high school ranks, being on the team. I believe, Smith and Jackson were the first 4-stars from Memphis, or really the first Memphis high schoolers in general that were ranked at least to commit to the Tigers since Jonathan Lawson in 2021, to give you an idea of how long it's been. So we're those guys started the wave of, the Memphis high schoolers, paving their way back onto the team and perhaps, playing something of a role, not just being bench warmers like a few other guys have been, like a Tadarius Jacobs, for example, Joe Cooper, obviously. Jackson and Smith are obviously a tier above that. But Dylan Jones here, I think, is, if he does eventually come to Memphis, that could maybe take it up to an even higher level, because you're talking about a 4-star top 50 guy, right? Memphis hasn't really had one of those available to them in a while to go get, locally. And then you go to 2028 with Joshua Huggins and DJ Okuth on the way as well. Okuth also being from Bartlett. It seems like just like it was back in the late 2010s with the Lawsons and DJ Jeffries, James Wiseman, with those guys were all coming up at the same time. It seems like a new crop of, highly talented, prominent local players. They're starting to emerge again after a solid half decade or so of a down period for the city there.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like back in my prior to BCM days, I worked with a 247 local affiliate, and obviously 247 Sports is a big time, high school recruiting website. They do a ton of stuff there, and so a lot of the content that I created was around local high school recruiting. And so, man, I remember the DJ Jeffries, the Damian Baugh, the James Wiseman, the Malcolm Dandridge, the Lawson boys, those guys, all of those guys. And I was very intimately engaged with like all of their recruitments because that's the organization in which I worked for. And so it's so interesting now because like I feel like, with BCM, like we're not a recruiting site, so we don't do a whole lot of recruiting information here, recruiting news here. And I will say this, with the institution of the transfer portal since Bluff City Media has been around, Penny has kind of gone away from even some of the high school recruiting for a while, and I think he's getting back into it. Obviously, this year specifically with Fred Jones and Cello Jackson and Parker Pounds, and with Dylan Jones committing, like I would love to know what kind of enlightened me and everybody else. Like, everybody knows Bartlett's a really good team, right? They have some really talented individuals on their team.
Yeah.
What is it about Dylan Jones, 4-star top 50 player? Like what's his game like, and why do you think Penny is targeting him so heavily right now? I mean, it seems like he's got again, Dylan Jones has Texas A&M, Providence, Ole Miss, Alabama, Memphis on his chart right now, or his list of teams that he's looking at. It's a pretty heavy duty list. Like what's Dylan Jones's game like?
Yeah, I mean, to go over the visits again. I mean, it's Memphis on the 4th, September 4th. And then you got Texas A&M September 11th, Ole Miss on September 19th, and Providence on September 25th. So he's going through all 4 of his official visits in like a 4-week span there. So perhaps he's looking at a quicker decision timetable than you might see from some of these other guys.
Yeah.
But as for his game, he's a wing that Penny typically likes to go after. Primarily an athletic slasher is what you're looking at with Dylan Jones there. Not the most developed outside shooter at this current point. He does have a bit of a mid-range game, but offensively, he's mostly a slasher. He's mostly a guy who's going to use his body and his athleticism to go attack the basket. And, defensively, not the biggest standout overall, but again, he has the body and the length and the makeup to develop into, a prominent wing defender in a system like Penny Hardaway likes to implement that, of course, prioritizes aggressive pressing defense. So it's a promising local talent that is, that's clearly in the upper echelon of, high school recruits. A legit top 50 guy in the area just hasn't really been a thing in Memphis for a number of years. And that's probably the primary reason that Memphis is involved here. They just want to keep any local talent that's available to them at home. The issue is that, one, the portal has complicated that a little bit, but also there just hasn't been talent available to them.
Right.
Being upfront about it. I mean, I've talked about this before in previous years. After the 23-24 season, when people were complaining about the Quinterly team and they're saying, scrap all that, tear it all apart, and go get Memphis high schoolers. And I was trying to tell them during the same appearance I did after the season was over that year. It's like, guys, there are none. There are none, because they'd already lost Curtis Givens at that point. They'd already lost Billy Richmond at that point. There's no one else for you to go get. That's it. There's really no other talent that's good enough to play at Memphis in the city. That's harsh, but that was the reality at that point. That's been the reality for most of the 2020s. But again, as we're getting to the later point of the decade, we're seeing some guys start to emerge again. Fred Smith and Cello Jackson are on the team this year. They're looking to get Dylan Jones on the 27-28 team. And then I'm sure they're going to be heavily pushing for Josh Huggins and DJ Okuff to be on the 28-29 team, right? I mean, they want local guys here.
Yeah.
It's not like Memphis doesn't want local players anymore, but you can't just be from Memphis and expect to be on the Tiger basketball team. You got to be good. You still have to be at a certain level, and there just haven't really been that many good level players. A Memphis good level in recent years, but they're starting to emerge again, and thus you're seeing Memphis recruit them again. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I like it. I like, and which is another reason why I'm glad that the Fred Smith Jr. stuff worked out. I'm glad Cello Jackson is with Memphis. I'm glad Parker Pound stayed, right? Like, these are kind of laying the groundwork, I think, for some of this higher level talent that's coming out of Memphis with Dylan Jones, with Josh Huggins from Briarcrest, and the other kid from Bartlett, Okuff, is that his name?
Yeah, DJ Okuff.
DJ Okuff. Like, these guys are guys that, like, and which is why every Memphis Tiger fan should hope and pray that Fred Smith Jr. and Cello Jackson and Parker Pounds succeed here. Like, we want them to do well. We want Fred Smith Jr. to be a quality player for Memphis, maybe not a quality rotational player for Memphis, maybe not necessarily this year, even though all I'm hearing about in practice is how good Fred Smith Jr. has been. But the team being what it is this year, there's a lot of older talent on this team that maybe Fred doesn't get a shot. Maybe he doesn't get a lot of quality minutes this year, but you want to see these guys come here and stay here. Like, that's what you want. And so any of the commentary that we had about Fred Smith Jr. early on in the offseason was not about we want to see this thing fall. It was, man, I just want this thing to work out. Like, I want Fred Smith Jr. to come here and be successful, because it only sets Penny up for the future with Memphis Tiger or Memphis high school players as well. You want there to be a track record of success there. So shout out to Dylan Jones, man. I hope he enjoys his official visits. I could not imagine. Could you imagine being a high level Division I prospect in high school and having the opportunity to go on 4 official visits in 1 month, where you're just going and being just like wined and dined on a college campus, and just the red carpet being rolled out for you? How much fun would that be?
It sounds fun for sure.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, we remember all back in the day when these things were a bit more of a big deal. I think we were all kind of glued in to the recruits and their Instagram, because we're waiting to see the photos and stuff like that. Like that's not as big of a deal these days, but no, I remember back then, like, how hyped everyone used to be, like when James Wiseman's photo visits came out, DJ Jeffries did,
I can't remember which one it is, Roman, but there was one, maybe it was a transfer portal recruit that came and came to Memphis and showed put up pictures all over his IG of his time at Memphis. And he was in a pretty nice hotel. Memphis had gotten him like everything he wanted in his hotel room, candy and all the food and everything.
I think that was Kendrick, right?
Was that Kendrick? And then
KD? I think that was Kendrick Davis.
And then he showed pictures from another visit afterwards, and it was like he was in some like college dormitory where the paint was peeling off the walls, and they didn't have they had bottles of water in his room, and we were all like, "Yeah, let's go."
I think this is Kendrick Davis.
Is it? I could not.
It sounds like Kendrick Davis. Yeah. I remember the Kendrick Davis hotel photo on his story with the candy. I do remember that for sure.
That used to be a big deal, right? Like, we used to get really into like kind of like stalking these dudes' IGs and seeing what their visit was like.
Yeah, and it's still a big deal for a guy like Dylan Jones. And hopefully he enjoys all of his visits. It's not just Memphis, but Memphis will be first to him on the September 4th, and then he'll have A&M, Ole Miss, and Providence, respectfully. We also had some staff news come out last week. I was first to report that Memphis has hired a new director of scouting, Ethan Hunt. He comes from the LSU women's basketball program. Also had some internships with the NBA. Pretty
Ethan
young
Hunt?
guy.
Ethan Hunt?
From
Mission Impossible.
Ethan Hunt? It was some spy movie. Because I remember everyone making that reference, and I had to look it up to see exactly what they were talking about. Guys, I was born in 2004. Okay.
Yeah. If I was doing a recruiting video for Ethan Hunt, the Louisiana State women's basketball coach, I would say I would do a Mission Impossible theme with it. And I'm sure he's heard it before, but the end of it would be, here's your mission if you choose to accept it. This message will self-destruct in 5 minutes. Join the Tigers.
But Ethan Hunt is assumingly going to be the final staff addition for Memphis. Their coaching staff for 26-27 is filled out. Again, you'll have Penny obviously leading the way at head coach. You got Madlock at the associate, Steve Wright, Trevor Deloach, and Sean Mock are the assistants there. And then hired Phil Byer as the new strength coach, Ethan Hunt, new director of scouting, Gabriel Harris, of course, new general manager. So this new staff is taking shape for Memphis. Obviously, as we went over early in the offseason, a very different constructed staff compared to the past. A lot of differing perspectives, a lot more of a true basketball background across the board. But that is some relatively, good news for Memphis that their staff is completed by the time we get to early to mid July. That's certainly good news for Memphis. They had to wait until September to get their final assistant done with Roy Rogers last year. So good job on Memphis Penny to get that wrapped up relatively early. And then another thing we need to go over before we get out of here is some pretty big news for former Memphis basketball coach Tubby Smith. Obviously not a very popular name in the Memphis area for good reason, to be honest. But he is going to be getting inducted to the College Basketball Hall of Fame. Obviously, none of the Hall of Fame accolades were achieved at Memphis, but he did win a national championship with Rick Pitino's team at Kentucky, and then took him to a fair amount of NCAA tournaments after that, a number of Elite Eight appearances, won a lot of games at Kentucky, won a lot of games at Minnesota, had a lot of success at Texas Tech as well. The end to his coaching career was far from good. I mean, the Memphis tenure was obviously a disaster. Almost destroyed the program in a lot of ways. And then he goes to his alma mater, High Point, and wins like 45 games in 4 years there. So not much better. In fact, far worse probably. But Tubby Smith has he has achieved a lot to his credit, and I don't know if he's exactly deserving of this, to be truly fair. I personally think Tubby Smith's a little overrated, but he is, you can definitely look at the accolades that he is packed up throughout his career and come to the conclusion as to why he deserves this. So congratulations to Tubby Smith there.
Yeah, congrats. I mean, I don't ever want to come across as a hater, ever. Like, I would never want to do that, Roman. But it's tough for me, man, because I feel like there's two different parts to it for me. And it's no matter where you go, you give it your all, right? Like, no matter what you do, you give it your all. And I never felt like in the time that Tubby was at Memphis, even at his opening press conference, his introductory press conference at Memphis was tossing up Texas Tech Longhorn or Texas Tech Red Raider, the gun salutes. Like and then halfway through was talking about how nobody wants to play at Memphis anymore. Like, and then on the way out, like when he got fired.
First off, like the quote he gave about transferring is apparently quitting, like that was just a terrible look. Like that was a really bad look, especially at the time, and especially after the previous offseason where he gave this interview where he basically said, like, Memphis fans need to be realistic about recruiting expectations, because apparently Memphis was not capable of landing 5 stars in the Memphis area anymore. That was essentially what he was attempting to say, even though Penny Hardaway quickly proved him wrong as soon as he got the job, like, 2 years later.
Immediately proved him wrong. Yeah. I just and then on top of that, it was the levels of disrespect that his friends and his buddies in college basketball spewed on Memphis and on Penny Hardaway when Penny Hardaway got the job. As if, like, there was a level of, Memphis, you're supposed to be grateful that a guy like Tubby Smith came to your podunk town and showered his wisdom of basketball on you. Now look what you've done. Now you've got Penny Hardaway, and the microaggressive the racist tropes that came out from guys like Dan Dockich. Like, it felt so, it felt disgusting. And honestly, I don't want to blame Tubby Smith for that, but it's hard for me not to. It's hard for me not to, like, associate Tubby Smith with, like, real negative shit that came out about Memphis. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, in those people that were saying those things at the time, they were the ironic part of it is that they were completely overlooking how much harder Tubby Smith made this job for Penny Hardaway. Like, you guys have to understand, like, the damage that Tubby Smith did to Memphis basketball in the 2 years he was there.
Yes,
it was nearly completely devastating Like, like when I say it nearly destroyed the program, in many ways it did. I mean, you think the attendance issues that Memphis had this past season are bad? Because yeah, they are, but not even this past season left the fan base in such, a careless
Disarray.
position. Yeah, in such a careless position that the Tubby Smith teams, left the city. Like, any sort of buzz, any sort of spark, any sort of interest around Memphis basketball died with his JUCO squads that he touted out there and tried to tell everyone that this is the way that Memphis basketball is going to get back to prominence. This is how I'm going to build my program. When he had, 4 to 5 star high schoolers in the Memphis area who wanted to play for Memphis available to him, and he refused to recruit them the way that he needed to.
Yep.
The biggest problem with Tubby Smith from the jump is that he failed to understand what this job's about. He failed to understand what this community's about. And he failed to even attempt to resonate or empathize with this area at all. And I know that Tubby Smith has the reputation he has for a reason. I understand he achieved a lot of success. And I understand that, of course, you're going to think, the Memphis guys, the guys in Memphis are going to have a more jaded view. But you guys need to understand why it is this way. And, all the respect in the world to him. His accolades on paper tell you that he deserves this honor. And as a person, he probably does as well. But man, it's difficult if you're looking at this from the Memphis perspective and what we saw here.
Yeah.
To be able to look at this in a more positive area. We got Meeks here. The comments. Tubby didn't care for this job. He was here for the money only, but he truly didn't care for the school. It's hard to argue that. I'm not gonna endorse that necessarily. I don't know if it's fair to endorse a statement like that, but it's hard to argue it either. And then he adds, I even remember when Jay Billis got mad at the school for firing Tubby and saying the school was wrong and upset for us getting Penny. And another thing about Penny at the time is that, I mean, obviously people could argue at that point, was Penny Hardaway truly the best basketball hire for Memphis? You could argue that either way. But even if he wasn't, even if you don't think he was still undoubtedly the best hire at that point, because you needed someone who would get people in the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Like you needed someone who could just inject life into the program again and make people care at all, because that is what Tubby Smith had done. He had a $10 million buyout on his contract, and Memphis still determined that it would be more expensive in the long run to keep him because of how much money they were losing in season ticket sales, guys. You need to understand that. A school like the University of Memphis, which is well documented for struggling with its athletic budget, they have a basketball coach with a $10 million buyout after they already paid Georgia Tech to take Josh Pastner. They still determined, after all that it was still going to be more expensive in the long run to keep Tubby Smith than it would be to pay his $10 million buyout. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, I don't know what else does.
Well, hey, shout out to Tubby for getting in the Hall of Fame. Probably one of the weirdest Hall of Fame entries I've ever heard. I think whatever. Shout out to him, though. Don't want to be a hater, but you're not getting in because of your Memphis time. I can tell you that. I don't think he would probably claim it either.
No. I don't think he would hide from that either. I mean, he hasn't discussed it too much since then, but he certainly hasn't looked back on it fondly either. But regardless of how it went at Memphis, congrats to him. Congrats to his family. I'm sure it's going to be a cool honor and a cool night for him when he gets inducted officially in September. But this is going to do it for this week's edition of On Beat with BCM. Hopefully there will be a bit more to talk about at this point next week. We do have football media days, and we're still waiting for that official, formal signing of Nemanja Popovich from the Memphis basketball side, still waiting for the Tigers to officially get his eligibility approved and announced. And once that officially happens for Memphis, they'll have their roster fully in place, and that'll be quite significant for them. But for everyone on the Love City Media Network and for Kenny Stubblefield, thank you for joining me once again. This is Roman Cleary signing out. We will see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of On Beat with BCM. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube page. We'll see you back here next time.